Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Earthen's Den. And in today's episode, I want to talk to you guys about Blackness, right? So we're going to be talking about the dynamics of Black people, Black women, Black men, and our relationship to one another. And first and foremost, I see a lot of like the gender warring and a lot of commentary around relationships and just the whole nine. And I think the breakdown in like the communication and where we're at with things, where this comes from is because we do have this level of traditionalism, right? There are people who want to hold on to their traditional values and they want to exercise them because that's what worked in the previous years. And that's what's worked for us all up until this point in time. And I think that, you have women who are at a space in their lives where they're like, you know what, I'm going to decide to be spiritually liberated. And whatever that looks like, because I think that when we talk about the word liberation, it looks different for so many different women. And so there is a breakdown, right? Because women are like, hey, I don't want to be fit into this box. But I think that it's important to kind of assess where all of this is actually coming from, right? So I understand the root of like the traditionalism, right? And I understand that. But I think it's important to kind of assess where we're at with things as well, because I think that although some of it is valid, right? I think both parts, like nobody's invalid here. Like I'm not even, let's just create like a neutral space. Like I'm not even here to necessarily point the finger. But what I found in these spaces is just that we have to understand that what we're dealing with today is not the same kind of men who had those same values for women and respect for women and the love and cherishing of women, right? We are in a space now where there are men who are upset, they are angered, they are frustrated from their past hurts, they are frustrated from the things that they may have dealt with in their lives, the hands that have been dealt. And there is just a level of healing that needs to go on because of the Black man's psyche and the things that have been put in him and the opportunities that he's been deprived of and just all of these things. And so it's to a point where because there's no one else to kind of sit in this space and hold this space for him, it's actually being taken out on the women. And so I think I understand where we're coming from, right? And that's what I said. I'm not even here to say right or wrong. Like that's not what this conversation is about. This is just candid conversation in regards to these two prevalent belief systems, right? So what we have to recognize is that in today's age, we're no longer in that space, right? Like we're no longer in a space where women are valued and appreciated and respected for these things, right? And I think that there are definitely some men who are out there and who do respect women, who do value women and do have that kind of like belief, but it's almost like that's not the majority, right? That's not the widespread of the men and the situations that are being presented to women each day, right? And so I think with that being said, I think that we have to kind of take a step back and just kind of assess like what are we actually telling women to go and do, right? Nobody seems to ever really talk about the domestic violence cases that are being spikingly increased and the level of the number of bodies of Black women that are actually dropping due to the hands of domestic violence and due to the hands of psychological, emotional abuse, right? Suicide, like all of these things that are going on in the world. Like nobody's got a platform for that. And it seems as though when these conversations arise, nobody wants to hear it, right? Women are automatically at fault. And I think that it's just kind of time that we kind of step back and realize like what is our true intention, right, in regards to this? Because I think a lot of people will get online and though they may have the right intention, but the message just not be, the messaging may not be ready, right, to share with the world. And I say that because I think whenever you're in a space where you've got some baggage, some unhealed stuff going on in your life, you're actually going to have a very hard time coming out front and center and talking about certain things when you're kind of in a space of, right, you got this baggage, so you're kind of projecting through your own lens and you're not really seeing the totality of it, right? I am 100% here for unity, right? And I think that there are definitely a lot of breakdowns in regards to that, right? Like I definitely think in regards to Black men and Black women, first of all, having been raised by so many single women, we don't know what that actually looks like to have a man in the house to make decisions. You know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like how do you know? How do they know? What do they know? How do they know? They're not going to know. They know. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. And so I think that if, as a community, I just think that in order to bridge the gap, it's really just a matter of, I'm like all over the place, but it's really just a matter of mourning together and holding that space together and kind of navigating where do we go from here, right? I definitely think that in regards to the liberation movement, there are just some values that I personally uphold. And so I think it's kind of hard to tell someone to stop doing something that they enjoy doing. Like, and I think that this is the saddest part about it, because a lot of times this stuff is rooted in kind of like promiscuity. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time getting my words out today, but this stuff is rooted in promiscuity. Like, it's not really rooted in anything that is of value. I think that telling women that they can't have lives, right? And I'm talking about lives of just like individuality and, you know, the things that they enjoy, right? It's a really tough thing. And I think for me, the reason why I say that there's no right or wrong, because I'm just an outsider looking in. I personally don't think that I fall into any one of these particular categories. I do think that myself, I do have some traditional beliefs that I upkeep. And then I also have some liberation things that I do believe in, you know, as a woman, right? So I personally don't think that I fall in any one or two categories. And the only reason I say that is because I'm not pro something, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm just, you know, so, you know, just speaking from a observatory space, right? I think that we just kind of have to, as Black people in general, come together and recognize like what has been done, what messages are being spewed. And I think that men and women need to definitely take accountability. So back to the single mother piece, growing up, if you had some of the drama like in your life in regards to that, you're going to recognize that, okay, or maybe it wasn't in your household. Maybe it was like firsthand, like, you know, maybe you saw it in a cousin or something like that. But, you know, you see the conversations of like, oh, your dad isn't this, or, oh, your dad isn't this, right? All of this generational drama, you know what I mean, that just kind of is passed down throughout the line. And even if you had your grandmother who doesn't like your grandfather, like, so there's so much of that to where it's almost like that becomes the sound, right? That becomes the music for women. That becomes the music. So you don't really see what it's like to respect men. And then I think in addition to that, you know, so many women not having fathers, not having father figures, like, I think it's just time for us to like really, really get to the root of this and address like what really went down, and for, you know what I mean, sitting in that space with us. Like, I talked to you guys about daddy issues and things like that. Like, if we could kind of be honest about what is really going on, you know what I mean? Like, that's just not the vast majority, especially not of people who are having these type of issues, right? Like, it's not necessarily people who did come from good families and were fortunate enough, you know, their parents were married and they had, you know what I mean? Like, that whole structure is going to look completely different than someone who grew up in the trenches. Like, I'm just be honest, like, it's not even the same. Like, it's not even in comparison, right? Of the mental, like, fortitude and just everything that you had to kind of pull through, you know what I mean? It's not the same. The psychological, the PTSD, like, it's just not, you're not going to have that when you come from a privileged family. And it's crazy how unity in itself is actually seen as a privilege. And so, yeah, I kind of want to talk to you guys too about the jealousy dynamics that I definitely find in Black men and Black women. I think for me, this is I'm going to share my personal, I'm going to interject here before I move forward. For me, it's been very difficult, right? It's been difficult. And the reason why I say it's been difficult, and it probably shouldn't have been as difficult, right? But it's like we're all healing, we're learning, we're growing, and rewriting some narratives and reading some old examples. And, you know, when you know better, you do better. But I can honestly say for myself, that has been a very difficult piece, because me personally, having just a greater consciousness, like, I'm very studious, very intellectual, and just, you know, I'm always able to kind of see things from a different perspective, right? My own perspective, which is unique. So I think for myself, in addition to that, but also being someone who's very compassionate, like, I'm just a loving person. Sometimes that can be so conflicting, because it's like we're in a society today where it's like, that's just not the energy that women are safe in. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but this is a real thing. And I think it's saddening that women kind of have to be in a space where we're like, oh, I'm a damsel in distress to get some level of like respect, right? And I'm not saying that we have to be outside, you know, with our 9 and we like, yeah, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, like, let's just talk about the root of that. And you know what I mean? Like, why that is even something that we're seeing today, you know? And so I just feel like if we can just, like I said, mourn together, like, it's not a matter of a right or wrong or her side, he's that, you know what I mean? Like, because a father wasn't in the home, right? And because a father decided to step out the home, or a father, you know, was turned over and, you know, drugs or alcohol, that child, right, you or whoever, right, was deprived of those experiences, right, and was deprived of that male leader. And that right there creates a ripple effect, right? And so when we go back to that aspect of it, we can't say that, oh, it's just the women, right, when dad went and did this and now he's no longer in the home, right? And then when we kind of step back as a whole and mourn as a community, we can say, oh, this was put in our community. These are the stereotypes that are presented to us. These are the paths in which are presented to us in a way that we are forced to kind of go along and do and be, you know what I mean? So I feel like if you can just kind of sit in that space, then you can kind of move forward and we can have more peace and unity. Because I mean, what we're doing today is just we're destroying each other. Like, we're literally destroying each other. I think the problem with like relationships, like I said, I don't even want to talk about relationships, because it's like, for me, that's not my thing, right? And I'm not here to talk about relationships. I'm just talking about community, right? Like, I'm talking about Blackness in essence. I'm not talking about relationship dynamics, like in regards to romantic partners and intimate relationships, because I just don't feel like that's where I can't speak to that, right? So anyways, and so when we recognize that it was something that was done mechanically by design, and it's something that is constantly being engineered, we kind of have to look at it as a whole and say, okay, how can we move forward in our community today? And I don't think that it's a matter of, oh, they're wrong, or oh, she's wrong, you know what I mean? Because the truth is that we're all affected by this. I talked to you guys about Sarah Bartman and just how, Sarah Bartman was a slave that was very voluptuous, in regards to her breast and her buttocks. And, she was pretty much paraded like around cities and towns and things like that, and looked at as a circus act because of her thickness, you know what I mean? And so to kind of sit in this space today where we're out here and we're doing these things, like, to me, that kind of just shows something that says a lot, you know what I mean? And I'm going to just leave that there. And so I think for myself, like I said, because I have a little bit of both, I'm just not, we're just opening the door for conversation. So anyways, I want to talk to you guys about the jealousy between Black men and Black women, right? I believe that Black men are, we talk about the jealousy. I can understand this jealousy, right? So at my jobs, I've always noticed that in my most recent job, I was really observant in regards to this, but there was definitely an expectation for me and my Black coworkers to work twice as hard. And it was almost like it was without a question. It was, don't complain about it, do it. And I stepped back and I thought about it and I said, we work hard. Like, we don't get, we're the ones who are supposed to train people. We're the ones who aren't supposed to get breaks. We're the ones who, you know what I mean? And I realized that there was just a level of just unfairness. And I also took into consideration the fact that we were probably the ones who were underpaid, right? We were probably the ones who were making the less in our position. I watched someone else who was white come into the position, and she was there for a short period of time personally, but I don't think that she exhibited any leadership skills, right? When Black people come into these positions, if you have a Black manager, sometimes we're like, oh, he's the Uncle Tom, or he's like, he's bugging out because he's always on, big on us. But the level of expectation that carries in those positions for us versus the level of expectation that's in positions for those who are white, or it's not right. You know what I mean? It's just not right. So anyways, this girl ends up out of nowhere and gets this position in the managerial role, but she comes in every day. She's lazy, she's always cursing and swearing off at the mouth, and it's just like a casualty, like, oh, whatever, ha ha, this is, and this is something that I noticed too, like, there would be many times where it's like you come into a place of employment and it's like white people will do this thing where it's like, oh, we're just going to curse and we're going to make it seem like it's all right. But it's like, if that was me, I know I couldn't do that. And so that's troublesome, right? But these are things that we already know, but I'm just saying. So anyways, moving forward, I noticed a level of expectation on him specifically. And there would be times where they would try to get me to do things. And, typically I've always run into some conflict in regards to that, because I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's not right. That's not what I'm here to do. Nobody else is doing that. Right. And that's just not fair. I see people who come in and do nothing, yet they are fine. Right. They're fine. Like, but me, because I'm a Black girl, I'm expected to do X, Y, and Z. And that just goes back to the whole slavery thing, right? Like, at this point, it's kind of just evident what it is. And so anyways, I noticed this from my coworkers. So me, I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And I get a little bit of backlash, but at the end of the day, my point is proven, and that's pretty much the end of it, right? Like, it's not anything to where it's like an uproar. And if it is, I can handle it, right? Like, it's not anything that where I'm like literally on the floor arguing with my coworkers, but it's one of those things where I notice I have a voice and I can stick up for myself and say no, yes, you know what I mean? But I noticed when it came to my coworker, he didn't have that same opportunity. If he told them, no, I'm not doing this, that would not go well for him. And so I think sitting in that space, I was like, okay, I get it, right? There are some liberties that Black women have that Black men don't have, and that's by design, right? Black women can definitely enter to real estate markets and build multi-million-dollar portfolios. And I'm not saying that Black men can't, but it comes at a cost for them, right? And it's sad that oftentimes in these spaces, we kind of have to die of ourselves, right? And so the reason why I'm always like really big on community and just kind of like pushing that is because we go through so much as Black people that if we don't have peace and we don't have like connection with one another in our own space, then that can really just like it's so much to carry in the world. You know what I mean? It's so much to carry in the world. It's nothing like getting off of work, right? You already have to go to work, put on the mask. Some people, you have to do the voice and you have to do, you know what I mean? You have to be something that you're not. So when you come home and, you don't have that, or you do have that and it's just not necessarily what you're looking for, you know what I mean? It's difficult. And so I say that to say, like, it's important to realize that we can definitely have community and we can respect one another, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know what I mean? All of these different things. And I know that times are definitely changing. And I personally just think, dealing with people who just like don't get you, like, I'm going to say, just kind of like move forward with your life. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are definitely many different people in the world, but I think that anybody who is trying to change you to an extent, right? Like, for me, it's more so about what you feel like is change. And I think it's more so about what you consider disrespect, and I think those things are things that you kind of have to be good with within yourself, right? And I do think that to some extent you do have to kind of uproot some expectations that you may have had, that you realize these things don't really matter and these things don't really hold any weight or value. But I definitely think, in today's society, because things are just so scrambled, like, you kind of got to be firm and like strong in what you believe and what you're about, you know what I mean? So that's what I think. And, I definitely think it's really sad how when Black women, we talk about our love for our brothers and things like that, how so often that's kind of, construed as like desperation, right? And I don't really know like what, I don't really know why that is. Like, it's almost like if you say, yes, I value Black men, or, oh, I love Black men, it's almost like it's something that's just like, oh my, it's like cast your forks and pitchforks. Like, it's one of those things to where it's like, I guess maybe because it's not something that's said, but it's just like, you are just shunned. You are shunned. You are looked at in a completely different way. You are extremely criticized. They call it like a pick me. You looking like, and it's just really sad, because I think that as Black women, we just don't have the space to kind of open up and show our emotions and just kind of be in a space where we're women, right? And so, that's why I say when it comes to traditionalism, we have to kind of be mindful of the times that we are living in now, right? And the risks that we're putting our women in when we're saying, hey, just open up the door and be this and do this and do that, because it's like, well, unfortunately, we're not really living in that time, you know what I mean, where that is something that's appreciated. So another thing I kind of want to touch on too, because in regards to the liberation and all of that, I think that as human beings, and just kind of like as, God sent human beings, like, yes, we were definitely put here to multiply and to be fruitful and, to have dominion. God tells us that in the Bible. It's in the book of Genesis. Okay. And now I feel like it's almost to a point where I think it's almost what we're saying about women and things like this are slightly unjust. Right now, this is something I don't really want to touch on, because I think that It's so much that goes into this conversation. Like there's so many nuances that kind of go into work life and, you know, if you want kids and family, like there's just so much that goes into that. Like I just don't even want to go all the way far left. But I do think that we have to take in consideration the purposes of people and like what people are here and born and designed to do. And I think if you know that, then you'll have a better option at selecting someone who can support that, because I don't think that anyone here is just destitute. Now, I do think that there are definitely some women who are definitely here to just be mothers, right? They feel like, hey, that's my purpose. That's what I want to do. Like I'm a mom. I definitely know for myself, it just was something that was innate. And I think that that's okay. But we just kind of have to be mindful of those things. And, you know, we kind of have to respect that too. Like, I think it's important to respect those dynamics, right? So, and what was I going to say? I'm getting ready to wrap up here. I definitely need to write down like show notes, not show notes, but like outlines, because I don't do that. Okay, but I guess I can move on and we can talk about, interracial dating as we're clearing out. I think that I don't have anything against interracial dating, but I will say that actually I'm going to save that point for last. I wanted to talk to you guys about community within Black women. It's so important that we nurture one another. Black women are, we know the statistics. We know the things that are happening today. Like I said, you know, in regards to this new philosophy, or I can't even say it's new, but it's kind of something that's being put out into the world and it's introduced to a lot of people. But this philosophy that's going around, nobody is talking about the domestic violence cases and no one's talking about the abuse and all of these things. And it sucks, right? Like it sucks that these are the things that are always at the forefront when we talk about Black men. So it just automatically creates such a stifling fear. You know what I mean? And then you have people who get online and they're relationship coaches, or they may be in that space, but they're not necessarily parading, you know, the things that are celebratory about our men and the good things and the good attributes about them, right? It's all of this negative connotation. And so I think to some extent with Black men and Black women, we have to look at this as a whole, right? The connotations that are around us, the strong Black woman, the strong Black man, like aggressive, mean, demeaning, the Black woman, right? It's combative, she's argumentative, she's bitter, she's angry, like all of these things. We have to realize that strength is that's what we embody, because we're powerful, right? Like we're kings and queens. Like kings and queens are powerful, they're strong, that's their birthright. They should be in that space, you know what I mean? And also recognizing who put these connotations around us. And so I think if we can learn to speak about each other in a more respectful way, then I think that could also help to elude or at least eradicate, right, the negative things that we may believe about ourselves, right? We can move forward and we can actually sit in a space where we begin to cultivate the king and queen in all of us, right? Instead of just being in a space where we're just constantly, oh, you this or you're that, or you know what I mean? Like it just gets to a point where it's like at some point somebody has to kind of turn the page. You know what I mean? At some point we have to realize that, you know, at the end of the day, it definitely starts with us. And so lastly, that's another thing I want to talk to you guys about too. So I want to talk to you guys about sisterhood. Now, I'm really big on sisterhood. I'm definitely getting into a space where I want to create that space for us. But I just had to touch on this too, because I think a lot of times when we see a Black woman who's doing something or she has something that we have, we begin to covet. And I think that this is definitely probably one of the biggest just disruptions in regards to our community, because we can't the level of jealousy that we feel for one another is just so infectious and it's literally debilitating. So I feel like, you know, if you are someone who is like that, I don't know, like I personally don't understand. Like I get jealousy, you know what I mean? Like I get it, like, you know, right? Like, yeah, it's love and hate. It's, you know what I mean? We hear all of those things, but just that root and that seed in your heart, like you just need to go and work on that, because it's like you're a part of the problem. Okay. At this point, you're a part of the problem and it's just not okay. You know, I've even had myself and when I was in situations where I definitely would find Black women tearing me down and like, you know, not uplifting me and encouraging me when I was in spaces. They 100% felt competitive. And it was always really alarming because I'm like, these women were like double my age. And I'm like, girl, like, there is nothing that, you know, what are we really talking about here, right? So I think that even in that space, like, it's just important to kind of like step back and recognize those things, right? And so before I talk about interracial dating, I just kind of want to conclude with this. I say listen to podcasts and things like that. If you are desiring community, if you are desiring certain things and just like peace and harmony with one another, I say listen to podcasts that bring people together. Listen to podcasts that have an array of different women and men, and they have, what, I'm going to bring that to y'all. That's what I'm going to do, because I think it's just time that we kind of just get out of that space. And I think that there are definitely people online who have the right intentions. Like, they definitely want to sit in that space and they want to be there, but that's just kind of what happens when we move forward in life, right? Like, listen, Lauren is real. Lauren here, that's my girl. Okay, and I'm kidding, I don't know her. Like, respect, we're going to respect my sister, but it's a real thing. You really cannot win if you're not right within. Like, you're winning, but then it's like, look at the people you're hurting. And I think, to me, that's just a part of the problem. Like, that's a part of the problem. You know what I mean? Now, I do think that you have some people who aren't going to listen. And this is what I say too. We kind of have to stop trying to bring back those who are so far out past yonder. You know what I mean? Like, me personally, I don't waste time with that. Me and my sister, we were out, and there was a guy who stopped us. He was asking about some Bible verse, and, we had a brief conversation. He was a little mildly aggressive. And, when men approach me in that sense, because he was asking me about like God and Jesus and all these things. And so, I answered the question and, and took an educated guess. Right. And, that I think that what happens is there is a level of intimidation that comes from our interactions with each other as Black people and as Black men and Black women. Whenever we feel like someone knows more than us, I think that it does something to where it just stifles the connection. But I'm not going to justify his behavior. So anyways, moving forward, yes, I do seek understanding, but we ain't going to be out here justifying stuff now. So moving forward, he was like, he started to be really rude, and he was like, "You mad, sis?" And, the conversation was so subtle. Like, he asked me, what did I think about the Bible verse, and what did I think? And I said, oh, I think this, and, I think this. And because it was different than what he believed, he kind of started to just, go a little bit off the rocker a little bit. And so I kind of just walked away. Now, typically, I don't stop for things like this, because I know that there is typically some like religious denomination that is out here doing these things, because God don't force himself on nobody. Let me just say that first and foremost. And people talk so much about the Bible, but they pick and choose what they want to read, what they, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, I get it, and I love God, but it's like, this is why I'm always kind of like in my own way. Like, me and God, we do our own thing. I show up, I talk about him, I praise him, like, but I'm not one, like, I don't even really care to do it outwardly, right? Just because it's just like so many people come with all of their rubbish, and it's just like, please spare us, spare me. Literally spare me. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I just can't deal with this. Like, it's too much, So anyway, conversation escalated. My sister's like, "You're aggressive, blah, blah, blah." Now, me personally, this is what I'm relating this to. I don't argue with people. When people say, "Oh, you don't have a backbone," or no, I know how I can get. Trust me, I know myself more than you know me and anybody else, right? I've lived with me for 24 years, and I realize that when it comes to anger, it does not look well on me. It does not look well on me. It's one of those, and I hate to even sit in that space and be like, "Oh, you know what I mean?" Because that's not what I'm about. Like, I'm such a peaceful person. Like, I really am. I'm very peaceful. Like, I can't even say that, because honestly, I think I'm great, but y'all know what I was about to say. But I'm a peaceful person. Like, I really am. Like, I don't really do a lot of rah-rah. So with that being said, men like this and people like this who you just can't talk to, you can't say nothing to them. They just got their own stuff. When they see you, they want to argue. I don't deal with people like that. Like, me personally, I just don't deal with it. Like, I don't have the time for it. I don't have time to be trying to talk somebody out of no, if that's how you're moving, that's what you're about. All right, cool. That's not a reflection of me. That's not what I'm about. That's not how I'm coming. And I just move on with my life. And so, stop wasting time with people. Like, I think if we could stop focusing on so many people who are so past yonder, you know what I mean? It could just be a difference. And I think that the reason why is because negativity is just so contagious. And I feel like negativity is just, I'm not going to lie, I feel like negativity kind of sells. You know what I mean? So a lot of people focus so much on what is not working and what is not going right and how this person is this way. Like, how about you focus on the women who are, okay, hold up. Because now, now I got to throw myself in here. Like, I think when it comes to my platform and just so many others who have like such loving and positive and nurturing things, those things are ushered in the background. There's a lady, I love her ministry and everything that she does. She's so peaceful and so vibrant. It's Shannon Yvette on YouTube. And nobody ever talks talks about her channel. You know, she's so loving. She's so respectful. She's always got the brothers on there. They're meditating and praying together. And it's just so beautiful. She talks about God and real estate and how he like, you know, it's just such a positive platform. But these are the things that aren't talked about. And it's the same with Black men. Nobody talks about the brothers who out here, you know, making it happen, showing up, being respectful, doing all the things that, you know what I mean? Nobody talks about that. So this is also something that we have to recognize, that it's us who's also kind of feeding into the problem. Like, you know, let's talk about men who are actually showing up, right? Queen Afua, nobody talks about her YouTube channel. Like, and this is the problem. And so I know that the problem is to kind of get people to come back. But I think if we can kind of just highlight the positivity, people will gravitate towards that, right? Like, you know, sadly, but hey, you know, darkness sometimes comes to the light, you know? And so maybe they can be transformed in that way. But I just don't think that holding a space for all the negativity and bashing one another is a healthy way to go about change and transformation, right? Because clearly, like I said, everything I've listened in this podcast, it was designed that way. Right. And so we can see, like I said, Sarah Bartman, like, you know, all of the systems that were in place to leave us here today. OK, so lastly, I want to talk to you guys about interracial dating. Now, I am not someone who is opposed. Like, love is love. I get it. It's your thing. I'm not going to say I'm not opposed. Like, it's just, you know, I personally, I just don't have anything negative to say about it. But what I will say this, because I got to set somebody free today, honey. Interracial dating is okay if you don't have to neglect your Blackness. Don't you neglect your Blackness now. If you're gonna neglect your Blackness, I think that that's something to reconsider. You might want to do a spin and a twirl, honey. I don't know. I just think when it comes to interracial dating, sometimes I just see that Black people will gravitate towards that, or they'll be in that space. Yes, because they say, yes, it's easier and things like that. But I think if you have to neglect who you are at your core and your essence of who you are, that ain't right. Then that to me, no. No. So it's going to be a no for me in regards to that. And I think if you can show up in that space and you can be who you are and you can be yourself. And here's the thing, like, your Blackness is not taking them to, your cousins who live in the inner city or who live up there on the block. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that, but I'm just saying they need to be able to embrace all of you, though. You see what I mean? And I think that sometimes we get in spaces where it's like here's the thing too. Let me address on this, because a lot of times we think that it's like, oh, you forgot where you came from. No. How could anybody forget from coming from living in something that was just jacked up? Like, nobody forgets that, right? And so this is not one of those conversations where I'm like, oh, once you be successful, you need to forget. Absolutely not. But I just think that when you lose who you are in the midst of trying to become something, I think you got to kind of assess your motives and recognize, like, okay, what am I really seeking here? If I'm willing to go against myself, you know what I mean? Like, that's not love. That's not a foundation for love. Like, that to me sounds like a foundation for hate. And, I just think, you might want to reassess that, bro. You might want to pop the hood on that. I don't know. Park it. Park it. So this was a really fun episode, and I really hope that you guys hear me out and just, definitely understand where I'm coming from in regards to this. Like, it's a real thing. I'm really big on, like I said, community and sisterhood. I really want to create that space for us over there in my subscription service. I may do Patreon because it just kind of seems like maybe that'll be easier for some people. I don't know. We're going to see. It's a test run right now. But it's important for us to kind of have that space to where we can kind of just like decompress our emotions and just do lady things. You know what I mean? Like, we can do lady things. We can sit and we can talk and we can just be in a space where we're like emotional and stuff, and we just be women, right? Like, it's great. It's fun being a woman, and we can have that support because I think that, one, we need that, and that's going to radiate and permeate the spaces outside of us. And two, well, yeah, I mean, it's a need, so, yeah. So anyways, I hope everybody has an amazing day. I'm feeling amazing. I've definitely had some very interesting moments in this whole COVID thing, and maybe I'll make a separate podcast episode in regards to that to let y'all know how I'm doing. I'm off the gram right now, and I really, really want to be off for the rest of the year. It's just, for me, I'm just kind of over, I'm over mainstream. I know, right? It sounds kind of crazy, but it's like I'm over mainstream, and I'm kind of over everybody having an opinion about your life, you know, and even like seeing other people and having an opinion about their lives, you know, it's just not my thing. So I don't know, y'all. I'm kind of going back into my little shelf conclusion. I meant to say conclusion. I said conclusion, but I meant seclusion. Anyway, all right. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and yeah.